What's up, football fans? Welcome to the first fantasy football related episode of Controlled Chaos. My name is Nick Ciamarra, aka DJ Dicky Nick, and I'm excited to talk fantasy today. It's Wednesday, June 27th, and it's a beautiful day here in Bel Air, Maryland. The 4th of July is only a week away, which means summer is just starting to heat up, and that means fantasy football seasons are starting soon. So let's get into today's segments. We're going to start with snoozers and losers. In this segment, snoozers are fantasy players who tend to fly under a lot of leagues' radars that I am predicting will have a productive season. Often these guys are called sleepers, but I like snoozers better, so that's what I'll call them. Losers are pretty much self-explanatory. These guys are fantasy players who will cause you to lose critical games. So I'm here to make sure you pick the snoozers and avoid the losers. I've got 5 snoozers, 5 losers, and as a bonus, I've got 5 players that have already proved that they should be drafted in every fantasy league. But I believe these guys are going to have the best seasons of their careers thus far. So I'm going to call them Transformers. Alright, so the first snoozer I picked is wide receiver Allen Hurns from the Dallas Cowboys. You know, last episode, the one we did on the beach, my buddy Brandon talked about how Allen Hurns is going to adjust to the Cowboys system very well. And we talked about how much of an upgrade Dak Prescott is going to be from Blake Bortles. Once again, no disrespect to Blake Bortles. You know, I think Dak Prescott thrown to Allen Hurns is going to be an underlooked fantasy combo. You know, the biggest fantasy combos are like Tom Brady to Gronk or Matt Ryan to Julio Jones. But I could see the Dak Prescott to Allen Hurns combination looking damn nice. Allen Hurns has never shown that he's a great receiver, but he's shown moments of greatness with Blake Bortles at quarterback. So I got high hopes for Allen Hurns playing in Dallas's offense this season. And all fantasy owners should be looking out for him while preparing for their fantasy draft. Alright, so my next snoozer is quarterback Mitchell Trubisky from the Chicago Bears. You know, Mitch Trubisky showed that he can manage a game well in his rookie season last year. He didn't have much weapons around him. You know, he had Tariq Cohen and he had Jordan Howard, also Zach Miller to throw to, but really not much else. And he was still winning some games. He was playing smart, not throwing a lot of picks, and now he's got a guy like Allen Robinson, an explosive, go up and get it receiver that, you know, I can't wait to see in this Chicago offense. And I think Mitch Trubisky is going to only get better. He showed that he was getting better game after game last year, and I'm just excited to see him play with Allen Robinson, and I think all fantasy owners should be looking for Mitch Trubisky late in their fantasy drafts. Alright, so my next snoozer is wide receiver Corey Coleman from the Cleveland Browns. A lot of talk is going around about the Browns and how they now have 2 dominant receivers in Jarvis Landry and Josh Gordon. But, you know, a lot of people are not talking about Corey Coleman. And rightfully so. I mean, he just got in the league. He was a rookie in 2015. And he's been hurt all last year. You know, defensive coordinators are going to be game planning against Jarvis Landry and Josh Gordon mainly. Those are the 2 biggest threats on the Browns offense. So I think that gives Corey Coleman plenty of opportunities to be that X factor, to be the guy who, you know, gets open more often than Jarvis or Josh Gordon possibly. So I would look for Corey Coleman late in fantasy drafts. You know, maybe one of the last few rounds, I could see him getting picked up. So my next snoozer is wide receiver Mike Williams from the LA Chargers. You know, we haven't seen him play yet. We've seen his college highlights. He's looked good. You know, he came from Clemson. Clemson has produced some great receivers playing the game today. Guys like DeAndre Hopkins, Martavis Bryant, and Sammy Watkins. So I got high hopes for Mike Williams. He's got a similar size to those guys. He's a big receiver like them, and he's got a lot of speed too. So I'm excited to see Mike Williams. I think he could be a great weapon for Phillip Rivers along with Keenan Allen and Tyrell Williams. So I'm excited to see Mike Williams this year. All right, so my last snoozer is a running back who has shown that he can play well. He's played well in the past for the Cincinnati Bengals, and now he's on the New England Patriots. His name's Jeremy Hill, and I think this is the year he bounces back. I think, the Patriots are going to have to deal with Edelman being suspended. Brady's just getting older, and I could see Jeremy Hill, him being a difference maker for the New England Patriots. And I really hope he is that guy, and I hope a lot of you look out for Jeremy Hill because he's shown what he can do. He's shown that he can have a 1,000-yard season, put up 10 or more touchdowns a season, and I would look out for Jeremy Hill in your upcoming fantasy draft. All right, now we're on to the losers.
We call this place Loserville.
The first loser of today's episode, and it hurts me to say this because I really like the guy, Jordy Nelson, wide receiver for the Oakland Raiders. Last year when Aaron Rodgers got hurt, Jordy Nelson practically disappeared. There were times that I forgot that he was still on the team. Losing Aaron Rodgers sucks. I don't wish that ever happened again because that was some boring Packer football. Devontae Adams didn't disappear. That offensive line didn't disappear. Even though Brett Hundley sucked, he still gave it his all, almost beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. But, man, Jordy Nelson just disappeared. It makes me wonder if he's going to do that again in Oakland with a young Martavis Bryant in that receiving core and a young Amari Cooper in that receiving core. I love Jordy Nelson, like I said, but, man, I think he gets beat out. I think he's the third receiver in Oakland, and I think it's the Derek Carr, Martavis Bryant, Amari Cooper show. And I see Jordy Nelson kind of falling off, unfortunately. So avoid Jordy Nelson if you got a better option out there. But if he's your best option, he's still not a bad pick, but I would go elsewhere if I had another option in my draft. All right, so up next we got Andrew Luck. See, I love Andrew Luck, and I don't want to badmouth any of these guys on this list, but, it's been since 2016 since he's been on a football field. And for him to just come back on this Colts team that does not look good, I don't see that being a recipe for success. So, you might as well put T.Y. Hilton on the losers list. As much as I like T.Y. Hilton too, I don't see this offense working. I think it could be productive. I think Andrew Luck could get comfortable again. They got Quentin Nelson on the offensive line who they just drafted. And I think it could be a productive season, much like I think the Browns are going to have a productive year. I don't think it's going to be successful, though. I think both of those teams finish under 500. I would not go with Andrew Luck in my fantasy draft. So I've noticed a lot of projections for next season, and I see Jerick McKinnon, the running back for the San Francisco 49ers, on, I shouldn't say the top, but near the top of the list of running backs that are projected to do well. And, I just don't see it. I see him maybe playing as well as like a James White or a Darren Sproles. I don't see him being like a Deion Lewis or a real, don't get me wrong, McKinnon is a good ball player. He's quick, he's fast, but I just don't see him playing consistently well. And when Dalvin Cook went down, he did get some carries, but it was Latavius Murray getting the bulk of the carries in Minnesota, and he did work. But Jerick McKinnon was just like that third down back. He was average to above average at times, and I could be completely wrong. He could do well. That 49ers team looks like they're trending in the right direction, like they're doing a lot of good things, but I just don't see Jerick McKinnon being a top running back threat in fantasy football this year. Alright, so my fourth loser is Mike Evans, wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And, I like Mike Evans. He's a hell of a receiver, still a top 10 receiver in this league. But, now you've got Jameis Winston, who's suspended at least the first 3 games of the season next year. And, even with Winston in the offense last year, that offense still did not look that good. Winston was throwing picks. They were losing close games. Mike Evans was getting frustrated. The whole team was... It just looked like a disaster, and, I don't see much changing. When you start off the season with your quarterback getting suspended 3 games, I just don't see Mike Evans having a productive, consistent fantasy season. Alright, so my fifth loser, and, he had a pretty good year last year, and he still could. I could be wrong, but I think Alex Smith is set up for failure in Washington. He's got Josh Doxson and hopefully Jordan Reed. I hope to see Jordan Reed come back. It's hard to tell. I haven't heard much about his recovery process from his last injury. I don't see much talent, much to be afraid of in this Washington offense. Alex Smith had plenty of weapons in Kansas City, and sometimes he still couldn't get it done. And in Kansas City, he had Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Kareem Hunt, and Andy Reid running the show. So, I think he's got less to work with in Washington, and I don't see it working out too well for Alex Smith. Here at Controlled Chaos, we like to end all of our episodes on a high note. So now I'm going to get into the Transformers. Like I said earlier, these are the guys who have shown that they deserve to be drafted every year. They've had great seasons, but they're not quite great yet. And, I think this season, all 5 of these guys I'm about to mention have the best seasons of their career. So first off, I'm going to go with Martavis Bryant, wide receiver for the Oakland Raiders. Everyone has seen how good Martavis Bryant can be while he was playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's got the size, he's got speed, he's got incredible hands, and I think him and Derek Carr are going to get along real well. They're going to be a great 1-2 combo, along with Amari Cooper taking off some of the stress. But yeah, I think Martavis has a hell of a year, maybe 9 touchdowns, 1,042 yards. That's what I'm going to guess. I hope I'm right. I hope Martavis has a great season. It'll be exciting to see Derek Carr with a couple new weapons, especially Martavis Bryant. Alright, so my next Transformer is the one and only Kirk Cousins. I feel like he's finally getting appreciated. I feel like in Washington he wasn't fully appreciated. I think a lot of the fans and the organization doubted him, but I've always believed in Kirk Cousins after that first playoff run, and I'm glad he's getting a good contract and he's getting paid what he deserves in Minnesota. Now he's got 2 great receivers in Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen, who played phenomenally with Case Keenum last year, and I'm excited to see Kirk Cousins with those 2. I think that's going to be fun to watch, along with Kyle Rudolph too. So I look forward to seeing Kirk Cousins back and Dalvin Cook. Can't forget about Dalvin Cook. So that's going to be a fun offense to watch. And I think Kirk Cousins has a 4,000-yard season, posting 34 touchdowns. I'm going to stick with that. Alright, so my next transformer is Joe Mixon. I think it's clear now that Joe Mixon is the starting running back in Cincinnati. You know, Jeremy Hill's in New England, Giovanni Bernard is only getting older, and Joe Mixon is the dude. Andy Dalton has never been great. A lot of times he's had to lean on the run, or A.J. Green, or the defense, and I think this year is going to be not much different. I think they're going to rely heavily on Joe Mixon to get them first downs, to carry the ball 30 or so times a game. I think Joe Mixon has a great season. I still don't think the Bengals are going to do that well, but you never know. Joe Mixon ends the season with 1,100 yards and 14 touchdowns. Alright, so my next guy is quite the personality. He showed plenty of that in Pittsburgh last year. Wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster. You know, Juju showed the speed he has. He showed his reliability. You know, I feel like Ben and Antonio Brown and Mike Tomlin can all count on him to play well. Like I said, Juju's a personality and he likes to have fun. But I think football is always number one for Juju. At least that's what I saw last year. He had fun. He started the celebrations, which I thought was cool. And that was all fun. But I can tell Juju's got his head in the game, much like Antonio Brown. I think they're very similar, and I hope to see, you know, Juju really play a lot like Antonio Brown. And I think, you know, learning from the best, playing next to the best has a pretty big impact on how a player's going to do. You know, just look at Tom Brady and Drew Bledsoe, Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre. I know that's just quarterbacks, but these guys learn a lot from the players they're around, and having a guy like Antonio Brown next to you and having a rookie season like Juju did last year, I think it's only going uphill for a guy like Juju. I see him finishing the season with 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. Alright, so my last transformer, one of the biggest moves in free agency back in March, was Green Bay signing tight end Jimmy Graham. You know, Green Bay just lost Jordy Nelson, but now they've got Jimmy Graham, one of the best tight ends in the NFL. I think he's going to have an amazing season. I think it's going to look a lot like the Jimmy Graham and Drew Brees combination back in New Orleans. And I'm excited. I'm really excited about this combo. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to love Jimmy Graham. I think he's going to go up and get it. And what I'm about to say is going to be pretty bold. It's a bold statement. But I'm saying Jimmy Graham gets 16 touchdowns and records 1,100 yards. Alright, that wraps it all up. I hope you enjoyed this fantasy edition of Controlled Chaos. More fantasy-related episodes are coming soon. I want to give a big shout out to anyone who watched Chaos on the Beach. We are now at 178 views. At Controlled Chaos, we work our asses off, so it means a lot to see you all subscribing, liking, leaving comments, and sharing the show with people you know. So I want to thank you all for that. I'd also like to mention that there will be a free raffle contest coming up. More details will be available soon on the Controlled Chaos Instagram and Twitter. So be sure to follow those accounts at CONTR Chaos, no spaces. Have a great rest of your week, everybody.